Hello, I was muted. Hello. I missed you all last week. We had one of those electrical malfunctioning things, which has now been fixed, but it just let me know that I ended up feeling really grateful when the electricity went out everywhere. Instead of going, oh, no, I just felt so grateful for all of the things that electricity provides for us. And I found, oh, that was great that I can have that kind of response instead of going immediately into complaining. But I'm very happy to see you all. And so far today, electricity is working. I was also thinking when I was preparing for today that actually I don't prepare, I wait for something to come to me. And so what came to me is that what is love anyway? Because we call this loops and scoops, and we talk about love scoops. And my sense is that at the root of all of our problems is some aspect of ourselves that we think is unlovable. And so when we do love scoops, I often wonder about why people have such resistance to it. Like, they have all kinds of different resistance. And I think it's because we don't feel that we're worthy of big scoops of love. We don't deserve it. That's way too much. And so I was recalling something that we've used for years, which was what we call a drop of love. And giving a drop of love can be just as potent as a big wave or a big scoop of it. And I also was remembering, what is love actually? When you're experiencing love, what is that? How would you describe it? And one thing that I keep coming back to is my willingness to be in the same place with. That if I have a friend who is, having some hard experience, there's often nothing I can do, but the power of being willing to be with them in that, I think is incredibly generous. It is an expression of who we can be as humans. So I wanted to put those two things together in an invitation for you, because I'm imagining that because you're on this call, you have an intention to give to others, probably more than you do to give to you. So I want to focus on you today and refilling your reservoir. And so I'd like you to be giving some attention to you and notice if there are any little tight places or just flat, or places that are more kind of not energetic for you. And I'd like you to actually take a little imaginary dropper, and I'd like you to let yourself get some love, because in that space all around you, I'd like you to get some love, and then I'd like you to apply it to that place and letting it land. And then noticing what your body wants to do with that. And then noticing, and then getting another dropper full, and then noticing in you. This will give you a chance to give some attention to your body, because usually we treat our bodies like, an engine that just takes us from place to place, and don't really give it attention until something breaks down. So this is really like love lubricating the flow through you. And so it may be still that same place. I have a little bit of a glitchy place right here. So I'm going to give another drop of love to that. Ooh, and how I was feeling that too is I'm doing a kind of a little tickle touch with my fingers in that place to really let myself know I'm attending to you right here. So you might want to notice, does the drop of love want to be followed by anything else? So just notice that. For me, then things start moving in a different direction. So rather than always forward going, doing, I start getting a little bit more of a wiggle that wants to come, or an opening in another part of me. So letting yourself get a drop of love, applying it, receiving it, And then notice what happens in you. So now my body is saying, hey, what about my knees? Hey, what about my feet? So as you're doing this, other parts of you might light up. So I'd like you just for several times, let yourself get a drop of love. And you might even imagine that you're getting a drop of love from a well. I was just thinking of being in Chichen Itza, where they have cenotes that have water that's been in there for a very, very long time. And getting water, getting love that has some meaning to you, and then giving that to you. And my niece just said, hey, me. Okay. And so I'm giving some love from my knees. And notice, because when you start giving attention to your body will speak to you and will let you know, okay, now, yeah, the back of my ankle, or my left hip, or that place right between my shoulder blades. Yes. And so giving it to yourself and then letting that land and letting your body respond. So we're opening up the ability to be with ourselves as we are, because often we won't give ourselves love until I've lost the weight, or until I've finished the chores, or until everybody else is happy. So your willingness to give love to yourself just the way you are right now. And notice if there's any resistance in you, if there's a resistance place that goes, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'd like you to give some love to that. So that might be right smack in the middle of your brain. It might be, in your shoulders where you're getting hunchy. So let yourself just notice that as you start giving love to yourself. Like, one of the things I'm noticing is that I'm feeling more spacious. And I'm feeling more spacious out to the sides of me. And I find that's a place that generally gets neglected, that we get narrow and forward, as we're sort of marching through life. So as you give love to yourself, notice different dimensions that might be opening up for you. And particularly, I love the around, any kind of around yourself, or any kind of widening, or any kind of deepening, because my sense is our culture favors up and forward, go, 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 do, always got to be doing the next thing and going really fast. So you might notice that you slow down. So drops of love for however you're feeling, letting those land. And then letting your body respond. So that's one practice that I wanted to invite you into today. And I want to now share the card with you that we've selected for you. And I'd love you to do, I love it that it has a kind of diving in quality. I hadn't thought of that when I started playing with giving attention to ourselves, but I'd like you to let your attention go into that, and then let your attention come back to you and notice what opens up in you as you're receiving this. See if you'd be willing to receive this as you would another drop of love, that this is something to nourish you, to open up to creating more space. And as you're looking at it, I'd like you to let yourself just take in these words. I know my stress signals, and it can shift easily into responsive presencing. I like that phrase, responsive presencing. I'm going to say that once more. I know my stress signals and can shift easily into responsive presencing. And then the question is, how can I feel the connection between my body postures and mental attitudes, and then use that knowledge to open to discovery? Great. So give yourself a drop of love just as you're listening to all of this. How can I feel the connection between my body postures and and mental attitudes, and then use that knowledge to open to discovery? So this card is in the responsibility pillar of the 4 pillars. And as I've been exploring this over time, I've really found that responsibility is about noticing the connection between things. And as I notice that connection, I have more resources to be able to respond. So let's come on back to the big group, because one of the aspects of responsibility and having to do with our own body's ability to respond is noticing stress signals before they hit you over the head. And so I want to invite you to know the place that you gave love drops to may also be a place in you that is a stress signal. So over the period of time that we've been exploring together in these morning calls, I've gotten more aware of the early warning signals that I'm getting tighter, that I'm getting more contracted. And so stress is really sort of fear light. So stress is when your body is starting and you are starting to get reactive rather than responsive. And I find if I can notice those stress signals and give myself attention, give myself love in that early time, then my body can restore balance and the ability to respond. And so I invite you this week to use your attention to notice, am I in the flow of responding, acting and responding in my life, or have I got have I got a jangle there? And that jangle for you may be a stress signal that you can then take a moment to give yourself loving attention and get the message, because there's often a message in what our body's responding to, but it comes to us with signals and body sensations rather than words. And if we let those signals move around, then they can come into images or words or a memory that will let you know what the action might be to respond directly to the stress. So I love that. I love also that the card, the sort of the background for me is what I experience as static. So for me, an early stress signal is a kind of a it used to be like back in the old days when we only had 3 channels on television. When the signals would go off, there would be this kind of staticky thing that would show up on the screen. And for me, that staticky is an early warning signal that, oh, I'm losing my weave of connection and things are starting to get a little frayed. And I have found that it's so much easier to give attention to that at early rather than having it, sit on me. We say that first, the universe gives you a feather, and then if you don't respond to that, it moves to a sledgehammer. So I've come to really prefer the feather. Although if you got that, no pain, no gain, I've got to really, work hard in life, you may be actually asking for the sledgehammer. So see if you would be willing to get your lessons in a friendly way. That's one of the intentions that has really benefited me, that I actually am willing to catch it earlier on and rebalance. And I find that allows me to stay in presence and in responsiveness so much more of the time than rather than dealing with the effect of the sledgehammer, which can be, like if you've ignored a signal, like something tapping on your shoulder, and then, it has to come in a lot stronger. So, so now I'd like to share with you the Presence Connect play for today. So for any of you who are new today, welcome. And we usually sample from 3 different areas because I want to make sure you have lots of things that you can play with during the week. And our app, Present Connect Play, if you don't know it, that's one of the things that we use. And Michelle, looks like you're putting that up in the chat for them. Thank you. And we also have a website that we're continuing to add to so that you have more information about each one of these acts that allow you to experience more presence, have more ways to connect with you and others, and then more ways to play. And there's just increasing evidence that play is so much more effective than work. So I sometimes think of now work as more the sledgehammer, and that if I'm willing to play, I can resolve issues much more effectively while having a good time, that I don't have to suffer even while I'm working through something or resolving something. So I invite you to play with these. So the presence one for today is notice your breath with hmm. So this is really an aspect of what we were doing earlier, which is to notice yourself and to notice your breath, because we often will notice, the stuff of our body, the muscles and the joints but the breath, noticing your breath is something that people forget to do. So if you create a hmm, as you're noticing your breath, that in itself is going to actually change your breath. It will change your breath from, whatever automatic thing you've been doing into a I find that it again widens my breath. I slow down in my breathing and I rest in my breathing. So in that aspect of love, of being in the same place with, if you're giving your attention to your breath and you're there with your breath, you're actually loving yourself through your breathing. And so I find that a wonderful thing that I can do really throughout the day is give a little hmm as I'm breathing, and then notice how that opens up my breathing, and then I experience more flow. I just felt a kind of a wave of warmth through my arms. So as you're doing that, you will notice more what we call symptoms of aliveness that occur. And so presencing, when you put together with anything, I find that the allows me to move into my creative part of my brain, but also the allows me to be with. And so I find that is a love move that deepens my presence. And then connect. Oh, connect is what we do on these calls. It's loop and shift your attention. So the heart of loop of awareness, we were giving ourselves love drops this morning, a version of love scoops. But loop of awareness is also a loving act because you're moving your attention from in you to out there and you're being with what's occurring. And to me, that is a loving move. And at the heart of loop of awareness is simply being able to shift your attention. Because just like in a really intense movie, you can find your attention going so much into it that you forget where you are. And that often our attention can take us out of connection with ourselves. So the loop of awareness is basically, first of all, the shift of awareness. And so when you're wanting to connect either with another person, with a group, with what's going on in the world, or with something that you're exploring, if you let yourself shift your attention, that's a very powerful way of opening up that flow of creativity. I found it really useful. Like I'm working on something, like I'm working on a document, and I'm kind of stuck in, what am I going to say about this? And then I realized, okay, where is my attention right now? And it's either going to be out there or it's going to be way in here. And then if I simply shift my attention a couple of times, I find that my flow of curiosity and creativity, boom, comes right back online again, rather than working on it. Because we tend to, if something is not working, we do what we're doing more. So like if I've been struggling, I struggle more, because if I can just struggle a little bit more, I'll get it. But if I simply shift my attention, then I'm sort of back, I'm back online, I'm back on the bike, I'm back on my flow with life. And then play, play, this is one of my favorites. And I actually do this continuously, but it's not something that I give attention to because I've done it for so long. It's become part of me. And the invitation for play is mirror the others with your body. So if you might just play with somebody on the call, or for those of you who are listening, somebody in your life or something that you are involved with, that you let yourself mirror. And what I mean by that is that you're letting yourself be with what you're seeing, as if you were looking in a mirror. And it's another kind of love scoop, another kind of loop of awareness, which opens play. Because when I give my attention, like, then I see something going on, and then I mirror that, and then somebody else does something, and then I do something, and there we have this play going where I can actually feel more of a flow of awareness, just as I'm doing this right now. So I invite you to look at someone, mirror what they're doing. So often people would say, don't do that because people will think you're making fun of them. But what I find is that people feel that I'm with them. And if I'm thinking they might be a little scared by that, I'll just do a little tiny bit. I don't have to do a really big mirroring. I can just do a little shifting of my own body, and then notice how much more aliveness that creates. Yeah, and a feeling of play. So these are all really some of my favorites. And so just take a moment now and notice if you've generated more aliveness, more play. Yeah, me too. And yeah, and I actually have goosebumps. So that, to me, that's really when I get big flow. I get big whole body goosebumps. So thanks very much for the goosebumps. And so I'm going to take my leave, and I welcome you to stay and play and shift and mirror. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Mwah. Take care.